Atari released Todd Fry's VCS conversion of Pac-Man in 1981 to, let's call them, mixed reviews. Now, like the Star Wars prequels, Pac-Man has become more appreciated as the years pass, but at the time it left many players frustrated and wanting more. So the following year, when the home version of Ms. Pac-Man was set to be released, Atari seemed to be doing everything it could to put Mr. in the past. We'll take a look right after this.
This video supported in part by...
Playing VR, I tend to sweat. It gives me an edge. So King of Nerds happens to give me an edge too. Let King of Nerds give you the edge. Bye, King of Nerds.
Hey there, welcome back to Gen X Grown Up. I'm John, I am a Gen X Grown Up. Thank you for taking the time to check out this video. You know, I was among those disappointed with Pac-Man on the 2600, and I'm also among those who have grown more fond of it over the years. But in 1982, well, that wound was still fresh. And it's pretty clear that Atari wanted players to know they were listening. At a time when games were commonly created by a single programmer, Ms. Pac-Man's development team is credited to be at least four different programmers, all working to deliver a more accurate arcade conversion. Just look at this promotional poster where the marketing for Ms. Pac-Man was pretty much a list of crimes committed by the 1981 Pac-Man release and how Ms. Pac-Man would atone for those atrocities. They mention things like different bonus fruit, not that box in the middle of the screen, although Ms. Pac-Man had even more fruit and they moved. Theme music, not the boo-doo-doo-doo, and that's all of the original. Bright, sharp-looking ghosts, not these super flickery, transparent things we got on Pac-Man. And things like sound cue to signal when the power pill is running out, where the original Pac-Man was pretty sparse. In these ways and many more, Ms. Pac-Man was a triumph where Mr. fell short. So in this Friday Plays, I want to focus on all the ways Atari's Ms. Pac got the franchise back on course. Before I jump into that though, I want to give a birthday greeting. Super fan of Gen X Grown Up, Disco Stu, his wife reached out to me. He has a birthday coming up in just a week or so, and she wasn't sure what do you get the guy who has everything? Well, one thing he doesn't have is a birthday greeting from me here on Gen X Grown Up. So Disco Stu, from me, your wife, and kids, we hope you have a very happy birthday. This Friday Plays is for you.
Well, here we are, our first and only stop on the 1982 Pac-Man Apology Tour that is 1982's Ms. Pac-Man. And as they call out, look, you have an arcade attract screen. It's not the same as the arcade, but this is actually more than the arcade had. The arcade would just have a demo of gameplay. This has too. As a title screen, it says Ms. Pac-Man, you get a little ghost dance, and then it pops into a demo mode where you get to see, you know, as if you didn't know how to play Ms. Pac-Man, but I mean, it walks you through shows you the game, plays a little bit, and then goes back and forth. So there's very little to explain in this game. Really, I'm going to give a quick overview of the options, which there are very few, and then jump right into a points run, and during the points run, point out all of the different myriad things that make this so much closer to the arcade, so much better than the original 81 Pac-Man that came out, and really what the original, if the 81 Pac-Man had been even close to this, it would have been just an uproarious triumph, just an absolute win. It just wasn't, because again, it was a huge profile thing. They had poor Todd Fry, one guy working on it, and it just wasn't everything that it needed to be. So first of all, quickly, game select, there are options, they're just difficulty options. So if I go through game select, what will happen is you just get this little bear in the corner. One bear, two bears, three bears, or a cherry. Cherry is standard difficulty, and the bears are just how many ghosts do you have? Just one, just two, just three, or the normal difficulty. And so the game is the same, really. It's just fewer ghosts chasing you, so easier for, you know, novices or kids to pick up and play. As far as multiplayer, there's not. It's a single player option. My understanding, I read somewhere once, there just wasn't memory to remember what dots are eaten and what aren't from like between two players, so that's why they can't swap between them. Difficulty switches? No, no function there. There are no trappings of other Atari games in here. Every byte was used to maximize the gameplay experience, and I think to great effect. The color black and white switch just switches it from color black and white. It's like a pause or anything. And scoring is almost exactly the same. I think it is the exact same scoring as in the arcade. I'll throw up this little image. It comes from the manual. It's all the same scoring. It's the ghost scoring, all the fruit scoring is all there. Just so, when I remember when I got, I got this, I actually borrowed it from a friend and then got it later, but when I first played it, I'm like, wow, this is like what I hoped an arcade version of Pac-Man would have been. I'm gonna get to play, of course, I'm not gonna be on, you know, bear mode. I'm gonna be on normal mode. Before I jump in this, I'm gonna give a quick shout out for our store over at GenXGrownUp.com/merch. We've been adding a lot of cool new mashup designs of our logo, along with classic logos like Back to the Future and Galaga and Nintendo and some other stuff, plus lots of other original designs you can find. Just head over there the next time you're looking for something. At least check it out. You can get those designs printed on hats and shirts and pins and stickers and everything. Help us out a little bit. We certainly would appreciate it. Okay. Let's jump into the game then. I'm hitting start. All right, here we go. And even the layout of the map here is pretty close to the original arcade game. Of course, it's stretched horizontally, but can't, you know, blame that too much. Now, of course, I'm going to pay attention to try to get a high score here as best I can. Probably 20 or 30 if I'm doing okay. But I really want to focus on getting to all of the screens, or at least 3 or 4 of them, to show you all the different screens that are available. Because that's one of the things they touted, that, hey, we have all 4 screens from the original. And they did. Pretty closely, too. There's the moving fruit running through the maze. I remember seeing that thinking, how did they do that? That's remarkable. You know, Pac-Man didn't even bother trying to draw a cherry, and this one has all the different fruit running around. Okay, other things to point out. The first most obvious is that Miss Pac-Man looks in the direction she's moving, rather than the Pac-Man that just kind of faced left and right. And that was one of the first things that I remember noticing, like, wait a minute, isn't he supposed to... And that was before I was doing any... You know, I was a kid. I wasn't doing any video game analysis. I'm like, is that how I remember that? It seems weird and wrong. And it's because it was weird and wrong. When you finish a screen, the way it flashes from the normal screen to white, that's preserved. It's just some of those intangibles, those aesthetics that are in the game when you play it, and maybe you don't notice them until they're missing. Also, the accelerated sound as the ghosts are running out of, or as you're running out of ghost power pellet. That increasing pitch. Also, the behavior of the ghosts. Now, they're not exactly arcade behavior, and frankly, I couldn't tell you exactly what arcade behavior is. I know that the ghosts have their own behavior. They're more random than they are in Pac-Man. Like in Miss Pac-Man, you don't really have these tried and true patterns you can use to execute every single time. It's more strategy, which I liked about Miss Pac-Man. But the ghosts do have their own behaviors. Like Blinky definitely moves faster than the other ghosts. On straightaways, you can get away from ghosts. On, turning corners, you can help you get away from ghosts. Man, I just put myself in a bad situation here. I can finish this maze. There we go. I think we're moving on down to the second maze. There's the flashing. It's also worth noting, the ghosts are all different colors. In the 81 Pac-Man, they just were all translucent. Yeah, I knew I was stuck in the corner. They were just all translucent. And terribly flickery, which we, of course, know. Exchanging score for level. I should have waited for all those ghosts to bunch up, but I just want to get through as many levels as possible so you can see as much of this game. And though the dots are still pellets, they're still little horizontal dots, which I'm sure was a programming limitation. The sound when you eat them is so much closer to that high-pitched squeaky noise that Miss Pac-Man made. Oh my goodness. That it just makes it more satisfying. Alright, I lost a couple lives here. That's bad news. I'm gonna have to tighten up. Let's just finish off this screen. That should not be any trouble. While the ghosts are blue. Oh no, I'm stuck in the corner. That's not great. Trying to get down to the power pellet, and that's not where they want me. Got it. Whew, okay. There's almost 20 grand. I think after 3 screens of this, just like the original, you go into the 3rd screen. Of course, I'm already down a couple of Miss Pac-Man, so... The other things you notice that were in Pac-Man, but they're much more pronounced in Miss Pac-Man, is the progression of difficulty and how, the power pellets don't last as long. Now, that was true of Pac-Man, but you didn't feel it because you didn't have that rising pitch that would have been a siren, in the original. I just got to try to blaze through this. Oh, I want the pretzel, but it's too precarious. Come over here. Maybe I get the pretzel. Hey, I got the pretzel on the way out. All right. Let's eat this and get out of here and finish up this screen if I can. It's already, getting shorter. There we go. Finish up this level. Nice. 23 grand. There's the third screen. So we'll at least see 3 of them. Now, when you get to this one, after every 2 screens after you start progressing through this, they just go back and forth between the second and third screens, I believe. But by then, you're so overwhelmed with variety that, you know, it feels like an embarrassment of riches to have all these different screens. After we kind of had that feeling of like, well, I guess this is what Pac-Man's going to be like on VCS, and then this came out of left field 1 year later, and just like, oh, so it was the program. It's not the console. In a lot of ways, probably the success and quality of this Miss Pac-Man was such a damning indictment against the original Pac-Man because it proved that it wasn't the console's limitations, right? It's like, oh, you could have done this all along? In a lot of ways, that's an unfair, got stuck in the corner. That's an unfair criticism because people also say that about homebrews today. That like, well, if that's what you could do on the 2600, why didn't you do that back then? Well, the thing is, there are new techniques today and reduced restrictions on size and complexity that simply didn't exist back then. It's like, well, yeah, if I could time travel and learn things that hadn't yet been discovered in the past, of course it could have been better, but that's not how time works, you know? Oh, I want that pear. Ooh, I have a feeling I'm about to die. We made it to 30 grand, we made it through 3 screens. I'm already writing my epitaph because I expect I'm not going to make it too much farther. It's a good day if I make it to the 4th screen type, and I'm not convinced today's going to be one of those days. Maybe leave that one and go for it after I eat this pellet, then I can just make a beeline. Let's do that. Oh! I didn't even go down in time I got caught. That's all right. So look, almost 36 grand. Going back to this Miss Pac-Man decades later, if you only remember Pac-Man and maybe got out of the Atari game because you're like, well, that's what it's going to be like on Atari, they continue to make strides even here early in the life of what was this, 4 or 5 years after the launch. To think this little console that was at this point already 5 or 6 years old in technology could produce this, I think it was wise on Atari's behalf to kind of put so much attention on Miss Pac-Man to ensure that the naysayers who said, oh, well, that's the Atari, it's just bad. It's not. You know, it comes down to individual pieces of software, and it's not about graphics, not necessarily about technology or, you know, how many megahertz or kilohertz you have available to play with or storage space. It's really about the creativity and the industriousness of the designers. And in a lot of ways, that is as fascinating to me as the games themselves, is learning about how we got to where we are and what the strategies were by the company that brought them to us.
Now, despite my being critical of the 81 Pac-Man, it was the only Pac I had at home, so I still played the hell out of it. But when Ms. Pac came along, the original seldom came back up in rotation. All the extra manpower and attention to detail brought to bear for this sequel truly paid off, and has made it a fan favorite still all these years later. I highlight a different vintage game each week right here on Friday Plays. If you have a favorite you'd like to see get this treatment, let me know down in the comments. Meanwhile, links to previous entries here and here. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this episode. I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.